Okay, I'm going to call this planning commission. Yes, I'm going to call this planning commission meeting to order. It's just about 4:30, September 23rd, 2024. We have Mary and Tony and Obi and Jerry and Laura in the room. Do we have anybody online from the commission?
No, both Steve and Aaron were unavailable.
Okay, so Steve and Aaron are not going to be attending the meeting. Citizens to be heard. And I can't tell it, nobody online? There's no citizens to be heard. Any ex parte communications and disclosures? None. Next up is approval of the minutes. Do we have any motions?
If you guys will notice, sorry, in your meeting minutes, I tried to note all the folks that spoke at the last meeting, but I had to use a placeholder of ZZZ, and that wasn't because the speaker was sleeping. It was because they did not state their name, nor did they sign in on the sign-in sheet. So if anybody knows who that speaker was and can identify them for me, I can add that to the minutes. Otherwise, I'll strike the Z's from the minutes with your recommendation. At the last meeting, the call to the public folks.
They spoke between Jonathan Scarda and Rick Cunningham, but we weren't able to hear their name and they did not sign in on the sheet.
How
So
would you generally note that? Would you say unidentified speaker, for
I
example?
would say additional speaker.
yeah, I think unidentified speaker would be good.
That's
Okay. Yeah, I can say right there, but I don't. Okay. So just a reminder that if anybody does speak, if anybody notices they haven't said their name, feel free to call them out and then remind them to sign in on the sign-in. What was Dwight Johnson? Look at you.
Oh, nice.
Star. Yeah, Dwight, Jeff Cornelius spoke. Then Ed Johnson spoke. I don't think I only had
They
three.
were
Three.
They were planning, county.
They were at your county commission.
Yeah,
Oh, here.
Yeah, this was just at the Casey.
and the other one was,
Dwight Johnson.
don't think forever, but I can't think of his name. I'll get it.
I got two of the three, but not.
Oh, yeah,
I can't
Russell
remember
Paul.
his first name.
Russell.
Russell. P-O-G.
I might have been, yeah, I thought we only had 3.
He went to example.
yeah. he did.
I think Dwight Johnson. Okay, thank you.
So then I guess what we would do is make a motion to approve with the CCC name corrected as noted, right? I'll make a motion that we approve the meetings with the change to the addition of the name as mentioned was Poe, right?
Dwight Johnson, I believe.
Johnson and Poe.
And Russell.
Okay. I make the motion.
Tony seconds. Any discussion? All in favor? Great. All in favor? Yeah, I guess we are now up to Trish.
I didn't really prepare much because, we had the same thing. We have the public hearing on proposed land use updates. We had I think 8 people come and make statements, so that was good. And we've got quite a few emails. We had a little bit of a discussion, but kind of tried to rein it in the sense like we weren't going to vote on it. So just some clarification. But I don't think you guys want to add much. I don't have much to fit today. So that will be on the next on our next agenda.
Thank you, Trish.
Hey, Trish. And speaking of the commission, do you know if they're going to be present? Any of them are going to be present for the future land use hearing tomorrow? Do we call that a hearing?
No, there's an open house
Open house.
tomorrow from 4 to 6 p.m. So
I am not going to be present because I had other things already scheduled. Hopefully, I mean, I would hope so. I think most of the commission made it to meet with our consultants today.
there's two
think
more
so.
tomorrow.
Okay,
Two more
two more
tomorrow.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
So that's good. But hopefully something will be there tomorrow. Sorry. I should be there, but it's, yeah, sorry.
Okay.
It's not often I have an evening open.
Thanks, Trish.
Thank you, Trish. Okay, I'm going to open a public hearing to consider the proposed land use code revisions to Article 3, 6, and 9. And we will start with staff report.
Okay, you have seen these articles and sections previously. We did, as staff, we did kind of go in there and make sure they were cleaned up as best as possible. I think there might be a few mistakes, so we'll get to those. And these are changes that mainly staff has recommended to some of these sections, so I'll just run through them really quick. So for Article 3, staff is proposing Section 3.2 and 3.3, there's some changes. One of them is for Section 3.2, it's requiring public improvements for commercial and multifamily development. So right now it only requires it for new subdivisions. So if there's a new commercial building going in or a new multifamily apartment going in, those same requirements to install public improvements don't exist currently. So that's the main reason for the changes to Section 3.2 is to require some public improvements at the time of development. Section 3.3 is changes to the accessory dwelling unit standards, and that is mainly to bring our land use code into compliance with state code. So it's basically reflecting a lot of the language that's in state code that isn't currently in our land use code. And then for Article 6, these proposed changes have to do with various things. So allowable height of fences per building codes, exceptions for retaining walls. We're proposing to update the floodplain section, and I'll get into that in a minute. And also to add a separate natural and historic drainage ways section. Right now, the floodplain and natural and historic drainage ways are combined. So we decided to separate those out. And so that's Article 6. And then Article 9, we're looking at a requirement if you're developing outside the service area of GWSSA, applicants will be required to provide some kind of proof of septic feasibility and adequate culinary water supply approved by the State of Utah Health Department. And then again, sections 9.81 and 9.9, I'll get to those, but it's to reflect changes to state code. It's just to bring us into compliance with current terminology. And 9.6 is some more requirements for the site plan application for commercial and multifamily development, just requirements for the actual submittal. So I'll just go to Article 3 really quick so you can see. So basically it's saying any new residential development shall be required to install or improve existing public infrastructure. The extent of the improvement shall be relative to the impact of the development as determined by county roads, county engineer, planning director, and pursuant to county construction standards. Also for site plan review for new multifamily residential, a site plan review application shall be submitted for review and approval prior to the issuance of a building permit or business license. So again, this is requiring if you're outside GWSSA service area, you have to provide proof of septic feasibility and adequate culinary water supply. Hang on, I might have read that wrong. that was site plan review as far as a multifamily or commercial. And then for all other residential development proposed outside, so if you're doing a single family dwelling outside of the GWSSA area, again, it's proof of septic feasibility and adequate culinary water supply. So that kind of follows for public and civic use standards, the same type of thing, required to install or improve existing public infrastructure. And again, if you're outside GWSSA, proof of septic and culinary water, and it just continues for commercial use standards and industrial. So that's just kind of bringing that through every type of use there. And then for the accessory uses and structures, so we've just got retaining walls in here as an accessory use or structure. And for fences, we've added them in a separate area where originally when this was listed fences under a residential accessory use or structure, it was considering fences as a structure. And the confusion there was, if it's a structure, does it comply with setbacks? And so that caused some confusion over time. So what this is doing is it's clarifying fences further down. So we'll get to that in a minute. And then it brings the accessory dwelling use up to standard. So this is going into the purpose of ADUs. Most of this, the old language is just scratched and then replaced. So it talks about they can't be sold separately. It did have condominiumized, but that means you can sell it separately. So we're just saying they shall not be sold separately. It talks about occupancy requirements. And again, this is just bringing it up with state code. Development standards. So now there's an external ADU or an internal ADU. So we wanted to make sure that got into our code. There's also duplexes and ADUs that wasn't in our code before, things like that. It's talking about setbacks, lot coverage, and these are all related to state changes and to our land use code. Site plan and permit requirements. So it does require a building permit with submission of a site plan. Talks about meeting building code, all those kinds of things. So in another section is where we talk about fences. So just to bring that up to speed. So fences can now go up to 7 feet in height without needing engineering design. So before it was 6 feet. So we're just changing that to meet building codes. And this is the section that talks about fencing and where can fence be built. So this takes it out of that realm of setbacks for an accessory structure and puts it just in fencing where it should be. And so that's part of our changes to Article 6. An exception can be made for retaining walls higher than 8 feet needed for slope stability. So this would be a review and approval by planning, building, and engineer if somebody needed something higher than 8 feet. So that's a kind of a separate review. And then for floodplains, Dan Stenta, our engineer, wanted to bring this up to our current standards. So we did adopt ordinance number 598 was a flood damage prevention ordinance, and it didn't ever get adopted into the code. It itself was adopted, but then it wasn't referenced in the code. So this essentially says these areas are subject to all provisions of ordinance number 598, flood damage prevention, hereby adopted by reference and declared to be a part of this land use code. So you do have to still refer to that ordinance to see what it says, but currently our code doesn't refer to that at all. So, and then we just struck through everything else having to do with floodplain because that's older, antiquated language about the floodplain. And then we added a natural and historic drainage ways section. And this is somewhat of a work in progress right now. There is Horrocks Engineers located natural and historic drainage ways, and there's a Spanish Valley Master Storm Water Management Plan dated December 2011, and we're adopting that hereby by reference. So referring to that plan for, do you have a natural or historic drainage way on your property? engineering, Dan Stenta does want to, update that map somewhat. So it didn't show all of them. It showed the major natural and historic drainage ways, but, lesser drainage ways have been identified. So we want to add that to the map in the future as well. So there'll probably be an update to that map. We're hoping in 2025. So then we'll have to revise that a little bit to the updated map. And then there was this hazard areas section. So we wanted to make sure that applicants needed to identify if they had hazardous areas, whether it be rockfall area, flood area on their property. So in all land use applications and building permits, they will be required to show that on their plans. They're not currently required to do that. So that's another thing that was added. And then we also wanted to make sure that we talked about grading plans. And this is somewhat of a work in progress for staff. But we want to make sure that a grading permit is required for over 50 cubic yards. So if you're moving over 50 cubic yards of dirt on your property, you will need a grading permit. So I think there's going to be more to come with this as far as, is there another threshold over 50 that kicks in something else? So that's something that we're still working on for staff, but we wanted to make sure we got this in here. So anything over 50 cubic yards, you'll need a grading permit. And that's it for 6. And then for Article 9, we wanted to make sure that for a preliminary plat that we made clear some other submittal requirements. There's A through Q. And so we had to add Q, which is, again, anything proposed outside the GWSSA service area will have to provide proof of septic and culinary water. And then there's also been an update to state code about lot line adjustments. So current state code, it gets a little confusing, and Mary might relate to this, but a parcel, so a lot is a lot that's identified in a subdivision. So a platted subdivision says lot 1 of blankety blank subdivision, lot 2 of the subdivision, right? A parcel is a lot that's created outside of a subdivision, and it's called a parcel. So there's a process to do lot line adjustments when you're a parcel versus a lot in a subdivision, and our code didn't have a section for that. So that's what this is. So a parcel boundary adjustment is when you're adjusting a lot line between 2 parcels versus 2 lots. So it's a slightly different process. So that's why we wanted to make sure that we just updated our language for that. And then again, site plan review shall be required for any new multifamily development, commercial use, or expansion of existing commercial use prior to issuance of a building license. It should say or building permit. So we'll make sure we make that change. It should say permit as well. It says, it does down here under A, site plan review application shall be required prior to the issuance of a building permit or business license for the following: new commercial or multifamily or expansion. And then under purpose, verify that commercial and multifamily development is in compliance with general development standards of Article 6, zoning requirements of the land use code, and any other county and state regulations, fire health code, etc. And then kind of clarifying what's needed for a site plan review. So we've been lacking a project narrative that just describes what is the development, what are they doing? And so it's really helpful as staff to be able to read what their proposal is versus guessing from just a site plan. So it's really important for staff to have a project narrative, and it doesn't have to be extensive. It could even just be a paragraph that lets us know exactly what's happening with this proposal or the building or the use. And so we were clarifying some things we needed in the site plan submittal. So that's pretty much what most of this is. And then, so the authority for a site plan review, according to the code, is the zoning administrator. And then, and this is where it gets a little confusing right now is, and maybe we'll change the language in the future, but we have a site plan review. And then we also we talk about just a site plan, which is somebody would submit a site plan for their building permit or things like that. But this is a site plan review and it has a fee associated with it. And so that is, the code does say that the zoning administrator is the land use authority for that. So we were just clarifying. And then there is a process if you're just doing a site plan amendment. So if you already have an approved site plan, if changes are made to the site that cause any of the following to occur, it says it has to be approved by the zoning administrator. Otherwise, minor changes may be authorized. So that's a little confusing now that I'm reading that again.
It's relatively clear, though,
Okay, yeah.
don't you think?
I mean, it's kind of redundant, but it's making the point. Okay, so that's all of the changes you have before you this evening. And I'll open it up to questions and suggestions and all that kind of stuff. And staff is recommending a favorable recommendation for all of the proposed changes.
So are there questions of staff now before we go to see if there's anybody to testify on the report here?
One tidbit for staff regarding the 6 money. Natural resource drainage phase after the flooding last year. First big flood. Phillips. After the flooding last year, Cora Phillips with Grand County Emergency Management brought in some engineers from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and did an emergency floodway analysis. I bet that that document and the mapping that they did, which was fairly comprehensive, it sounds like it covers the same area as Horrocks engineers study. It incorporates retention basins and detention basins and all that kind of stuff. It's fairly exhaustive. They use it as an emergency planning tool. Where does the sheriff need to go to close the road? But that's probably a really good thing to look at. So call for it.
Yeah, thank you.
That's all.
Yeah, I'm assuming Dan is aware of that, but I'll double check. Yeah.
Wait, any other questions on the report?
I just have kind of a procedural question. I've got about, I think, 8 things where I've got either questions or minor comments. So where should that fit within our discussion?
Why, yes, but maybe we should just make sure there's nobody in the public who wants to comment. I think there isn't.
I don't have anybody showing up
Okay,
as
so-
online, but just to address Jerry's question really quick, I think whether the commission decides to do separate motions for each section or one motion for the whole thing. I think once that motion happens, then you can get into your changes, Jerry. Yeah, that would be my suggestion. But if you just have questions, yeah.
Okay, seeing that there's, I think what I will do then is close the public hearing now, and then we can just ask questions and make comments. Maybe we should have a motion first on this very first section. I think it's a good idea to do section at a time. Does that make sense again? Just because I may have to, put a word in and put a period after it. That gets complicated if it's for everything. Okay. Sure. Do I have a motion on?
Well, I think you need to close the public hearing first, if that's,
What's that?
Close the hearing.
I didn't
Oh,
hear.
I thought I closed the hearing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't.
But if I didn't, I'm closing it now. Okay, so why don't we do Article 3, the proposed revisions for sections 3.2 and 3.3. Do I have a motion on that?
I'll make a motion to approve section 3 in its entirety.
Second,
I second that.
and Tony seconds. All in favor? Okay, discussion.
So usually you'd have discussion
After.
after the second on the motion.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, before we approve.
Yeah, then
Oh,
there,
before we approve it, I'm.
yeah, I got a little,
I didn't cancel that. Yes, absolutely.
okay.
We now have first and a second.
Yeah, so I would maybe ask if
Discuss,
there's any
yes.
discussion. Yeah.
Do you want to go ahead?
Whatever order you prefer, I'd be glad to go
Sure.
first if you want. All right, so. Amy, I guess a lot of these questions probably come to you, but in 3.2.1 residential use standards. It says before issuance of a building permit or building license, but this is in. Regarding residential use, I guess my question is, how does business license fall in? And is that wording?
So sometimes we'll get a business license request in a residential zone. So it could be for a home occupation. It could be someone that is just requesting a business license but doesn't maybe understand the process or anything like that. So if we get a business license request, one of the first things we do is check the zoning, check to see if they are in the correct zone for a home occupation, check to see if it's, various things. So if there's never been a home occupation before, but it's possible for them to have one, then we take them through the home occupation process. And so
Okay.
some of these things would need to comply depending on what they're asking to do there.
I got it. Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. So the next one in 3.2.1 is the addition of the adequate culinary water supply approved by State of Utah Health Department. And the reason I bring that up is maybe mine is a unique case, but when I built the house I'm in now, ran water, sewer, and water offered sewer but not water, so we put in a well. We never had that. We had that approved by the Division of Water Resources,
Right.
not by the Health Department.
Agreed. So I think the septic feasibility and adequate culinary water supply, State of Utah Health usually deals with that septic feasibility, or like you said, the DEQ or things like that. So I think it might be best,
There is wording in 9.16.3 E that had alternate wording, and I thought it was well put, and I thought maybe it would better fit there, but maybe
what section was that?
that was 9.16.3 E.
Take a look.
Let's see if I can find that again.
I think that applies specifically to development outside of the Quissa boundary, which is the delineated piece there.
Right, and I guess my point was, if you're doing a well, do you need to have the health department? I thought it was Division of Water Resources.
Yeah. No, Jerry, I think the section referred to the letter E. I think that could work. We would just, what it would say is any development proposed outside of the service area of GWSSA shall submit a septic feasibility and preliminary water availability report to the planning department for consideration. Is that?
So I think in a case like mine, what I submitted was well permit, and they approved it.
Mhm.
So it didn't go to health department, it did show water availability.
Yeah, no, I think that would work. I think, yeah, putting the state of Utah Health as the only reviewing authority there is
Yeah,
either we
but-
need
but
to add
that's-
more reviewing authorities or, yeah.
an alternate- acceptable alternate.
Okay, I think we can use the language you referred to in 9.1.
9.16.3 E.
Yeah.
And that actually carried into 3.2.2.3 and 0.4 as well. And the same wording was in there basically.
3.2.3.
Yeah, 0.2, 0.3 and 0.4.
Okay, got it. Yes, I think
It
that
was
let's
the
just
same
replace it
thing.
with that standard language that you mentioned.
Okay,
Okay.
sounds good. Now I had a couple more things.
Okay.
That was the biggest. In section 3, fences and walls in residential districts. Let me see if I can find that.
Are we only discussing three right now?
Yeah, and this is the last part of three that I had. And three includes fences and walls, right?
I see.
Oh, 6.3. I'm sorry, I missed the six. All right, that was the end of my threes.
There is a section in 3.3 under accessory and temporary use structures, that just brings up fences. Fences, walls. and they picked out fencing.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah, mine was 6.3.
Okay,
I just missed it in my notes. I missed the six in my notes.
okay.
That was all I had.
I had something very minor. Jerry had something that was a nice catch, and this was in 6.2, no, 3.2.1. The first one, I think it's lacking at the very end of that sentence, health department with a period.
Oh, okay. But it looks like now we're getting rid of that.
Yes,
Regardless,
yeah, but
right?
there's still the health department on the sewer. Yes, right. When you put that in, I guess that will take care of that. For the sewers.
Yes, I think the alternative language that Jerry's proposing will take care of that error.
And I think I have a question. I want to make sure I'm still on the right section also. Here, and it was on, let's see if I can do this as well. It's on page 12 of 25. And it was, oh boy. It's in that section B, part 2, and number B. So I guess it's about 60% down page 12. And it
OB,
says, am I on the right section or did I screw up section?
I'm just not sure if you're in Article 3, 6, or 9.
I think I'm in 3.3. And do you have it as page numbers? It's page number 12. And it's on this site plan design requirements.
For ADUs.
Yeah, for ADUs. And it's just a question. I don't really know why. I don't remember how, the discussion that was around it. Where ADUs exist on a lot with a duplex, one of the 3 dwellings shall be owner occupied. And the question was just of staff, why this holds for duplexes, but not for, a single person dwelling that has an ADU. I'm just curious. Or am I missing something here? I thought you don't have to have one of the 3 be owner occupied if you just have a single dwelling with an ADU, or do you have to?
So a single dwelling with an ADU would be 2 dwelling units, 2 residential dwelling units.
Yes, it would.
In the case of the duplex, and this is from state language, I believe, Mikkel can correct me if I'm wrong, but you're now talking that there's 3 dwelling units on the property.
Yeah.
So this is saying that one of those 3 shall be owner occupied. I think it's mainly the fact that now you've gone over 2 dwelling units on a piece of property, and
Yep.
someone should probably be on site to make sure everything is the way it should be. But Mikkel might have a little bit more history on that. Yeah, it's just straight from the state code, so we're just
It's from the state code. that does
correct.
that.
Yeah,
Right.
but I believe that's the reasoning behind it is, once you get over 2 dwelling units, there should probably be someone that's keeping an eye on things.
And I would have understood the reasoning. I just didn't know it was state code, and I hadn't remembered we'd had a long discussion about, oh, well, when you get to 3 units, it's different. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments?
I have a comment, and it's just for staff. There used to be in the code a section that protected the water protection zone that didn't allow septic systems. Is that gone? I couldn't find it.
Do you mean the water source protection overlay?
Yeah, and that's what in there, it says no septics.
Well, that's not my understanding, and I'm still learning that, Mary, but my understanding is septic systems are allowed. And OB's shaking his head like maybe he knows more. I could pull it up, but septic systems are allowed, but it's only for one single family residence. I don't think it's beyond that, but I'd have to pull it up to remember, but they are allowed, Mary.
Oh, that's fine. I just was wondering, I was just asking for clarification in that, but
Yeah.
we never used to allow. Okay. I just wondered. I mean, to me, this makes sense because you're exactly saying what needs to happen, and that's essentially what section 3 is doing, is giving us that clarification of how that works.
Okay.
Any other comments, questions on that section? So I think the one change that we have then is the one Jerry suggested, which basically says, yes, health department on sewage stuff, and then just making sure that they have adequate drinking water.
It's actually, yeah, 9.16.3E was the exact wording. Do you want me to just read that?
Yeah.
Make sure we're
just-
looking at-
Yeah, why don't you read that off so it's clear what part of that's in there?
Yeah, or you could just refer to replace. So what I wrote was for sections 3.2.1, 2, 3, and 4, that we're replacing number 1 with the language in 9.16.3E.
That's perfect. And I'll read that. Yeah, let me just stick it up here.
And you can make that motion as a, I guess, an amendment to the original motion.
Yeah. It 9.16.3E says, any development proposed outside of the service area of Grand Water and Sewer Service Agency shall submit a septic feasibility and preliminary water availability report to the planning department for consideration during site plan review. So basically, you have to prove that you've got suitable septic and water in order to go to site. Is that okay?
Yeah. I would
But-
probably remove the site plan review part of that sentence and stop at consideration, because some of what we're talking about is for just a single family dwelling that doesn't go through site plan review, or we could,
I think that's a good point.
okay,
When I make the motion, I'll not state this during site plan review.
okay.
All right, so ready to make the motion?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a motion to amend.
Yes.
So I'd like to make a motion to amend the motion to approve to strike the current wording in 3.2.1, 0.2, 0.3, and 0.4 related to Grand Water and Sewer septic and water availability, and replace it with the wording in 9.16.3E, except as per the follows, except the last 4 words during site plan review. So in other words, it would now say, any development proposed outside of the service area of Grand Water and Sewer Service Agency, GWSSA, shall submit a septic feasibility and preliminary water availability report to the planning department for consideration.
Is there a second?
Second that, Chip, good job there.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
So I believe that all in favor of the amended motion. Now I think you need to make another motion to approve.
Yes, that's true. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and now we will vote on the amended motion. Any discussion of that? All in favor?
Thank you.
Okay. So I guess we're on to Article 6, proposed revisions of Section 6.3 fences and walls, and 6.8 floodplains, natural and historic drainages, and 6.9 general development standards.
Sorry, are
Yeah,
you?
do we want to have a motion, or do we want to do a little discussion? It's a very interesting question always.
So
Maybe I'm going to say, let's do a little discussion. I think it's more straightforward on this issue. in terms of kind of edits, if we get into a discussion of opinion, then I think we need a motion on the floor.
So it's discussion, then motion, then.
Yeah, we're
Maybe
gonna do a discussion and then somebody can formulate a motion as long as we're just,
The,
Yeah, so Laura, typically,
yeah.
no, the standard practice is you have a motion, then you have a discussion.
and then
I
the
think-
second.
Correct, and then you can have discussion on that motion. But I think what Chair O'Brien is getting at is perhaps the time to talk about proposed changes or amendments or just errors might have been during the staff report. But it's okay, we're trying to provide time for people to ask for edits or amendments or changes without a motion on the table, I think is what Chair O'Brien is looking for. So, but yes, you're correct in that it would, typically you would do a motion first and a second and then discussion. But I think Obi wanted to see if there's any changes that people see or edits or things like that.
So you can include those in a motion, and if we get into some other kind of opinion discussions, I will ask for a motion on the floor.
Okay.
Do you have some edits here?
I do.
Well, go ahead,
They
Jerry.
may or may not be, but I'd like to have discussion about edits. So, if you go to 6.3 fences and walls. In residential districts. There is a note in here about barbed wire shall be prohibited except as follows, ag and ranch and then telecom. I'd like to give an example of one other where there is recently installed barbed wire, and that's around a city well located in a residential area. And so I guess my point is there might be need to do this for other than telecom. And how, I wonder if we could make that more general wording, or if,
getting technical, with you, Jerry.
okay, fire away.
Few what's up fences. Generally, when we're talking about barbed wire in this context, we're talking about 4-wire straight strand barbed wire that a kid can bump into and
Yeah.
get themselves out. Whereas what you may be thinking about is concertina wire,
That's-
which is the coil at the top of the tall fence,
Or-
which is not really what.
Or
this is
not
about.
even concertina, it's traditional barbed wire, but it's at the top of
It's-
about a 5.
That's the coil, is the concertina part.
And so that actually, that's considered something other than barbed wire.
I wouldn't. Big picture, 30,000 feet, not in the context of the land use code. I wouldn't think that what you're describing would fit the meaning of barbed wire for these purposes, where we're talking about something barbed and close to the ground in a residential zone that a kid is going to crash their bike into, is what this is for residential districts and barbed wire.
See,
Whereas
The reason that I wondered about that is that if you look at that full sentence, it says telecom may utilize barbed wire for security purposes and otherwise conforming fences.
you'll see out on like public lands, just like a cell phone tower out in the
Yeah.
desert with straight strand barbed wire around it. To like keep cows out.
This is though in residential, which is why I thought, well, okay, you're probably in town, you got some kind of anyway. But I can buy that, Tony.
It's just, I wasn't here when they wrote this, but that the context of it being in residential districts seems to me to be like a protection of pedestrians context. If we're talking about banning coiled barbed wire at the top of a 12-foot fence, it begs the question, what were you doing climbing the fence?
Yeah, I could buy it.
And we're getting into other things.
Not to say that it wouldn't happen, but
And actually, Tony's right, discussing it years ago. When this exactly.
yeah, that'd be kind of, what you're saying is this is a traditional 4-foot multi-barbed wire strand fence. Yep, okay. I had a couple other thoughts on the same section. That is, it references no fence or wall erected within a required front yard shall exceed 4 feet in height. I guess on side or back, the only requirement we have is if they go over 7 feet, it's engineered. they could have somebody could put a 10-foot out in their backyard, they just would have to have it engineered. There's no limit to height.
That's a good question, Jerry. Currently, there is no maximum. You are correct.
As long as it's engineered and permitted.
But it's a good question. Yeah, it would require a building permit, if it's an engineered fence over 7 feet tall. But I do think having a maximum is probably a good idea. If you think about in like, especially, well, this says for non-residential districts.
This is residential, actually. B is residential.
I'm reading the okay, so,
General still applies, which is A. That says you can't go over 7 feet now without engineering.
correct.
But there's really, in theory, I guess there's no limit to height. Some HOAs have height limitations. So there may be, other than county requirements, there may be height limitations.
Actually, if you look at C non-residential districts, and maybe this just needs to be added to the B residential district section. It does say no fence or wall erected within a required side or rear yard shall exceed 8 feet in height. But that's only in that non-residential district, so it seems as if that same language should be in B residential districts.
And you know what, I think the exception below that C2 is good too, because on the side of hills,
Sure.
it's good to have slope stability.
I would agree. So maybe all of 2, including A, should be added to B residential districts as number 3.
Yeah, I think that would.
Would
make
that work?
sense.
Yeah, I would agree.
And what else? A couple I think these are just clerical. If you go to 6.9.2 hazard areas.
Give me 1 second, Jerry, I'm still taking notes.
Okay,
So
Tell
just
me
give me
when
1
you're
second. Okay. Okay, where are you going, Jerry?
okay, probably not, Opie. Your mind and mine work differently, but both in a good direction. 6.9.2 hazard areas. I need to find that here. It seems incomplete. Let me see if I can find. Yeah, that if you look at, I'll just read it. Land subject to hazardous conditions such as rockfalls, wildfire, landslides, avalanches, or floods shall be identified in all land use applications and building permits. Proposed development in these areas may require additional review and technical studies. And then it's not crossed out at the bottom where it says require the construction to violate.
You did steal my thunder. I thought that maybe you wanted to delete the whole thing. at the
Yeah,
very last part.
I believe the intent was to delete that whole last sentence.
Okay. So, yeah, if you want to make that note, and then I had one more, 6.
Okay, go ahead.
Actually, no, that's it. That's all I got for 6.
Thank you, Jerry.
Mary,
I just was wondering, on the no grading over 50 cubic yards shall occur prior to the approval of grading permit. My guess is most of that comes from the building code, which is a state code, and it changes on a regular basis, and our land use code does not. And I was wondering if putting some reference to that in there, so that when it does, or if it does change by state, it will automatically change to what the building code requires. There was some language to that years ago, and I just wondered if that would be advantageous to you guys. because it does change and state code changes too.
Maybe you can help me form my opinion on that comment a little bit. In this context, is grading inclusive of materials extraction and general excavation? Or is grading specifically grading? Okay.
Yeah, as I say, so it's great. Yeah, that's a whole other section. Anyway, just to clarify, I didn't know if that would work for you guys. You might check with the building department.
I also want to just pull up our code online because it also says in accordance with section 9.18, and I cannot
The
remember.
6.99
Pardon me?
on 6.99.
Yeah, it says in accordance at the end, in accordance with section 9.18. So I just want to, I can't remember what that section says, so I just want to look at it really fast. And we do have a question on Zoom from Jonathan Scarda, who is online. He did have a question. I think this was in Article 3 that we just talked about. And I apologize, Jonathan, I just saw this. He says, I have a question regarding the requirement to build sidewalks, curb and gutter relative to the impact of the development. How is county staff going to determine the impact of the development and the corresponding requirement for sidewalk? For example, if someone is building a single-family home on a 5-acre parcel, will they be required to build curbing and sidewalk along the entire road frontage of their parcel? That could be very disturbing to the landscape. In many cases, neighboring parcels will not have any curbing and sidewalk. Will landowners be required to build sidewalks to nowhere? So that's his question. I'll answer that a little bit, Jonathan, in the sense that there's certainly and there's some state language about it as far as are the required improvements related to your development. So if someone is, I'll just throw out an example here. If someone is doing as you're stating here, if you're doing a single family dwelling on a 5-acre parcel, would you be required to do sidewalks all along those 5 acres? Usually that wouldn't be it wouldn't be exactly to your point. It would be above and beyond the development that you're doing. If you were doing a subdivision on that 5-acre parcel, then that would the requirement to do those improvements is more tied to the scale of the development that you're doing. So no, in the example that you gave us, if you're doing one dwelling on a 5-acre parcel, typically that wouldn't be a requirement because we couldn't make a nexus from this one dwelling is going to kick in additional impacts as if there were a subdivision there. So that's the best I can answer your question right now. And there's some state language and state code about that. And that's really what staff would use to make that determination. So I hope that answers your question well enough.
The construction standards also have the sidewalk regulation too.
Yeah, correct. If you heard Mary, the construction standards also have things listed there, and it looks like Jonathan says, thank you. Okay. And I just wanted to look at 9.1.
There isn't a 9.18. I was gonna bring that up too.
Oh, that's in 9.18. Thank you. I
There's
won't
nothing
bother
in there.
looking it up. Okay, so Mary was saying my question about the reference to 9.18 is the construction standards. So there we go.
Okay. No, what I'm telling you is in the code book, there is no 9.18. The land use code doesn't have a 9.18. I was gonna bring that up too.
Well, I'm gonna get back on here and look. So give me a
I thought you
second.
meant 9.1.8.
Now that might be it. That might be it.
That's what I heard the first time.
Well, this reference here is section 9.18. And I think you're right. That's probably just a typo. Is that's public notice. part of
Oh,
this.
is that
That's right. That's my first thing. You said that there it is. It's a dog.
9.1.8 is public notice requirements. So I don't think that's what it.
No,
meant
it's
to say.
not. And 9.18 is not in the book.
You are correct. So this was, whoops. So that was already in there.
I know.
Nothing
Well,
more.
there's a couple of things that I've noticed when I was going through this where the numbers aren't correct. And I was just gonna send you a section, just a little note telling you what I found so that you can maybe fix it.
I think it might be best to strike, obviously, in
Yes.
accordance with section 9.18. What we might be able to do instead is,
Find where that goes.
pardon me?
Isn't there a section in the code book that brings up, because that was specific to grading? And in the land use code currently, there would still be a grading section. So
I think it
that's
might-
probably-
Yeah, I
It's
think
just it's just a mistake somewhere in the process of changing code.
sure. It might be helpful just to refer to the construction
There you go.
standards in here rather than trying to find what other section it should go to.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, that would work.
Yeah, I think it might be best to
And
say,
the alphabet on your numbering here is off a little off too, but you can fix that. It's off. It should be C instead of E and E instead of F. That's just corrections. Easy
sorry,
corrections.
and what section are you in now?
The same one, 6.9.
Okay.
Because you got rid of C, you got rid of D, so that means C
Sure.
needs to go to E and E needs to go to F.
Okay, so just give me 1 second.
Oh, you know. no,
So for
it's-
A, for grading permit. If we were to change that to say, no grading over 50 cubic yards shall occur prior to the approval of a grading permit in accordance with construction standards in state building codes.
Yes.
Would that,
And there's a section, yeah, and ask Bill what that building code section is, because it used to be a part of it. Because their code changes regularly, although I don't think it's changed much in that section. It just saves you guys from having to change the land use code. And Bill may not want you to have it in there, so it's up to, something, a staff recommendation at this point.
um, I need some more time to take notes here.
Taking good notes, good.
You are a good note taker.
Thank you. Maybe we can just
Good luck with that.
Let's give Amy a chance to breathe.
Yeah.
1 second.
No, I think that's the way to do it. Just have a read.
You want me to run through those things that were pointed out? And then whoever's making the motion might have to take notes as well. But I will do my best here. So
So as a procedural question, would that work to have Amy read all of them, or should they all be included in the motion?
Actually, it could just be a motion for clerical changes, because that's all it is. You don't have to have all, they're just clerical changes. They're not important changes.
I could read them and you could make the motion to say clerical changes as read by staff.
There you go.
Okay, how's that?
Let's do that.
Okay, so in Article 6, there was changes to 6.3.2 for the residential districts under 6.3.2B. It was suggested to add a number 3, which is the language from C, non-residential districts, that says no fence or wall erected within a required side or rear yard shall exceed 8 feet in height. And A is an exception may be made for retaining walls higher than 8 feet needed for slope stability. Review and approval required by planning, building, engineering. So the proposal is to add that as a new number to be residential districts. And under 6.9.2, it is to delete the entire last sentence. It seems as if a portion of it was not deleted. So it's to delete the entire last sentence of 6.9.2. And then under 6.9.9, we're going to change that sentence to say, no grading over 50 cubic yards shall occur prior to the approval of a grading permit in accordance with construction standards in state building codes. And then under B, 6.9.9B, C and D are stricken, so E and F need to be changed to C and D.
Do I have a motion?
I can make a motion to amend staff edits.
To approve
To-
with a,
Okay. I can make a motion to approve the staff edits. Thanks, guys.
yeah,
Actually, we could approve section 6.
yeah, so
as
you,
edited by the staff. That would be the way to do it, I think, and then we're approving all of section 16.
and it would be Article 6.
Article 6.
All right, here we go. Here we go.
Okay, you got it, Laura, you
All
got
right,
it.
thanks, guys. I make a motion to approve Article 6 with staff edits.
There you go.
Tony seconds.
I'll
Any
second
any discussion? All in favor?
Nice.
All.
Thank you. Nice first
You're
motion,
down?
Laura.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
We are now down to Article 9,
Article
proposed
9.
revisions to section 9.4 preliminary plat, 9.8.1 plat amendments, 9.9 lot line adjustments, and 9.16 site plan review. And we can proceed in the same way, I think. So if people have some comments or suggestions for edits, please make them.
I have a comment. Yes, lot line adjustments was the way that the state code required at that time. But in this next section after that, like, from 9.9, A, B, and C, D, E, you've got lot line adjustments, so that should change to the new state code requirement of parcel boundary. Instead of lot line.
Yeah, I think we should replace lot with parcel line.
Parcel bound, yeah, whatever you call it.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
And like I said, that was the way it was worded in the state code.
Oh, yeah,
Clear back, so it's just their changes have been made.
yeah, Mikkel had a good point. She said we should probably give a shout out to Lucas Blake, our county surveyor, who pointed that out to staff. So thank you, Lucas.
He's also a good one.
And a couple also. Are you finished, Mary?
Yes.
Jerry,
Okay, so in 9.4 item Q, I would propose using the same wording as we had up above.
Okay,
And one, just a clerical one on 9.16.3D. There's a wording issue there.
okay, hang on.
and that's where it says an opinion of probable shall be, something's left out.
On the same track again. Okay. It's scary.
Okay, and Obi, what were you saying?
Only in that involves this, and an opinion of probable shall be submitted, and we don't know what should be in there.
Yeah, I'm sorry, what section are you on now?
I'm sorry, this is section D, so it's the same thing, page 23, the first D at the top of the page. If public improvements are required as part of the department per section, whatever, county engineers, well, anyway, it goes on, but eventually it says engineers approved civil plans and opinions of probable shall be submitted. So just missing
Changes.
something.
And this is in a preliminary plat, so I guess would that be an opinion of probable acceptance? I don't know, maybe you need to clear that up with Dan.
Hang on, I'm just reading to see where we are.
Sorry, I mean, we're at 9.16.3.
Yeah,
D
D.
is,
thank you. I found that. I'm just,
It's really, really good when you cite that section of code to begin all the way at the
That's what
9
I'm talking
and read through the entire thing, because when you're scrolling on the computer,
it's hard. isn't it?
there are no page numbers.
I don't have eight number.
yeah, Mikel and I are both reading it, trying to figure out what it meant to say. So give us just 1 second.
See, I think what we're after there is you want the engineer to be able to approve the plans and give an opinion that the plans would be accepted, basically, right?
I think Mikel mentioned, I think she's correct. So I'm gonna read it maybe the way we think that our engineer would like it to read. If public improvements are required as part of the development, county engineer shall review and approve the civil plans and an opinion of probable cost.
Yeah, that probably would fit, wouldn't it?
Cause
Oh,
yeah,
that's for
that's
them.
how we
You're right.
calculate the bond. County and,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I think that makes a lot of sense.
yeah, that's right.
yeah, I think it should say county engineer shall review and approve civil plans and provide an opinion of probable costs.
That's right. And then you know how much to bond. Yeah, that makes sense.
But I wonder if actually this is saying, that the plans that are submitted isn't county engineer, it should be,
Private engineer.
it should be the project engineer, so a licensed.
That's pretty consistent.
Yeah, let
the
me,
way it works.
it might be easiest if I just write it out for everybody to see. Let me see if I can do that. I'm gonna rewrite it while if I can.
Yeah, it makes sense if you just add the word cost, I think.
Um, let's try this again. I'm trying to be able to see it and type it at the same time, so.
It, it might be more, if you want to propose wording that might be more clear, I could throw that out.
How is that?
I was gonna recommend a little different. Want to hear what I was gonna recommend?
Sure.
That if public improvements are required as part of the development, the submission shall include county engineer approved civil plans and estimate of probable cost.
That won't exactly work because our county engineer reviews the civil plans created by the
That's
developer.
what I'm saying, the submission shall include, because the developer submits, right?
Yeah, but there won't be a county engineer approved at the time of the submittal. Does the approval come
And
out?
it says here, the county engineer shall approve, shall review and approve. I see, but what we're saying is before it proceed, as a part of this preliminary plat review, that's where the county engineer review and approval takes place. Is that what we're saying? Okay, yeah, then that makes more sense.
Okay, do we have any other comments or suggestions?
I think in this case, doesn't the developer provide an estimate of probable costs and the engineer just approves them? So I think the way you had it before there, so you got provided and provided in the same sentence there. And the engineer, the
So
developer.
Jerry, why don't you read to me what you would like it to say? I think that would be easier.
I think you can just say the county engineer shall review and approve the civil plans as provided by the developer. It should say the county engineer shall review and approve the civil plans and estimate of probable costs provided by the developer. Provided by the developer.
I like that, Jerry.
That's
It's
that's-
straight into the point, but I do have one last tweak. The county engineer shall review and approve or deny. Right now, it says that that's a shall approve,
Yeah.
and we don't want that.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Or make a determination regarding, Yeah. We want to make it explicit the county engineer has authority to reject us.
And approve or reject. Yeah, I think that would work. County engineer shall review and approve or reject the civil plans and estimate. Obviously, if he rejects, the developer goes back and reworks it. Is that too wordy?
No.
No other comments, why don't we move?
I do have
Oh,
one,
Tony
just
has one.
because, I'm sorry. This isn't an edit, this is more like a teach me what's going on thing. In 9.16.4, section C is getting struck out. That basically says, we don't issue a building permit before the approval of a site plan. We're taking that out, and so now theoretically, we could issue a building permit without the approval of a site plan. Is there a reason we want it to work that way? That I'm missing? It seemed to me that you would want the site plan done before the building permit is issued. But there's like a lot of moving parts, and there's probably like one string on a spider web. I don't know.
Tony, where are you at?
Sorry, 9.16.4 C.
What, stricken?
Section.
Yeah, your cursor's right on top of it.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
I'm-
sorry.
reading through here. I think it's okay to unstrike that and just make it B.
Sure,
Is
Thank
that okay?
Yeah.
Okay,
whatever gets it done. Thank you.
yeah.
The other comments? Why don't we do the same procedure? And have Amy kind of read out the staff's summary of suggested changes.
I will do my best. Okay, so for 9.4.2 submittal requirements, Q1, we are changing the language to match the previous revision. We're changing the language to 9.16.3E, except for the last 4 words. Then we went to 9.9 parcel boundary adjustments, and remember to replace the word lot with parcel in items in letters A through E. And then in 9.16.3, we are in D, we are fixing the language to be as written, amended by planning commission during the meeting. And then for 9.16.4, we are going to unstrike C and make it letter B.
Do I have a motion?
I will move to send a favorable recommendation to Article 9 of the Land Use Code as reviewed and edited with the clerical corrections made by planning staff.
I'll second that.
Mary seconds it. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. That's unanimous. Okay, I think we are on to future considerations. And I see one course is the open house down here between 4 and 6 here tomorrow.
Correct, and that's the open house, open to the public from 4 to 6 p.m. here in the County Commission chambers. And we have our consultant, CBZ Consulting is here, and there won't be a presentation, it's a come and look at poster boards that are going to be up, and you can interact and comment on those and seek information from the consultants that are here. So it's just to come in anytime between 4 to 6. So we encourage you all to come, and they will be talking about the future land use map, the revised land use plan, land use element of the general plan. Okay.
Any other future considerations?
I don't have any, but I was at the one-on-one today, and I'm going to try my best to make it to the open house. I like what CZB's, the track that they're on, and I think without any spoilers, the way they very tactically placed certain nodes and centers, that was a very intelligent site selection. So I just wanted to say, like, thank you guys for working on that. Didn't look bad.
That's pretty good. It didn't look bad.
However
That's
you
a
got
good,
that is
for planning,
That's quite a compliment.
we'll take it.
Any other? I guess we need a motion to adjourn.
Second that.
All in favor?
Thank you.
That's
Thank you.
not so bad.
Oh.